Sphinx is just 4,500 years old. By all means, yes, 2,500 BC, the ancient Egyptians were there, but I believe they found the Sphinx already created and already heavily eroded, and that they then recarved its head into the head of a pharaoh.
For thousands of years, the Great Sphinx has watched the sun rise over the Giza Plateau without ever revealing what it truly knows. Wind has battered its face. Sand has buried its body time and time again. Empires have risen, fallen, and vanished beneath its silent gaze. Yet through every passing age, the monument has remained, guarding a mystery that refuses to fade. Before we uncover the secrets hidden beneath this ancient monument, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support allows us to continue exploring history's greatest mysteries together. Most history books tell a familiar story. They say the Sphinx was carved around 2,500 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, making it roughly 4,500 years old. According to this view, the ancient Egyptians created the monument as part of the vast Giza pyramid complex, leaving behind one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements. But not everyone believes that story is complete. Some independent researchers, including geologist Robert Schoch, have suggested a different possibility. They argue that the Egyptians of the 4th dynasty may not have built the Sphinx from scratch at all. Instead, they propose that when those Egyptians arrived, they found an enormous monument already standing, one that had been exposed to the elements for an incredibly long time. According to this interpretation, the body of the Sphinx had already suffered heavy erosion before the Egyptians ever encountered it. They may then have reshaped the monument, carving its weathered head into the likeness of a pharaoh. Supporters of this idea often point to one unusual feature. Compared with the massive lion-like body, the head appears surprisingly small. To them, the proportions make more sense if a much larger lion's head had gradually eroded over countless centuries before later being recarved into a human face. Whether that theory proves correct or not, it raises a question that has fascinated explorers for generations. What if the Great Sphinx has been keeping secrets far older than anyone imagined? That question has driven countless expeditions into the deserts of Egypt. Archaeologists, engineers, historians, and explorers have all searched for answers hidden beneath the monument's weathered limestone surface. Every generation has hoped to become the one that finally uncovers the truth. The search has led to rumors of concealed chambers, forgotten tunnels, and hidden passageways buried beneath the ancient stone. Legends have spoken of them for centuries, while modern scientific surveys have hinted that unknown spaces may still exist beneath and inside the monument itself. Among all these mysteries, one location has attracted more attention than almost any other. Near the back of the Sphinx lies a little-known passage that has long been surrounded by speculation. Years ago, Egyptologists Zahi Hawass and Mark Lehner investigated this mysterious area after an elderly worker recalled hearing stories about a hidden tunnel near the Sphinx's tail. Following the account, the team carefully removed a single stone and uncovered a narrow passage descending beneath the monument. The discovery immediately raised hopes. For 3 weeks, the archaeologists worked their way through the dark shaft, documenting every detail as they searched for hidden chambers or forgotten treasures. Day after day, they continued their investigation, convinced that something extraordinary might lie below. In the end, however, the tunnel appeared empty. The expedition produced a detailed 16-page report, accompanied by a small collection of photographs and illustrations, most of which showed only the entrance and exterior portions of the Sphinx. According to the researchers, every accessible section had been examined, yet nothing hidden was found beneath the monument. Officially, the mystery seemed solved, but curiosity has a way of refusing to disappear. Years later, a handful of determined explorers reportedly seized a brief opportunity to investigate the rear of the Sphinx while authorities were distracted. They had only moments before risking discovery, but during those precious seconds, they managed to capture several remarkable photographs. Those images appeared to reveal something unexpected. Instead of showing only the previously documented passage, the photographs seemed to reveal another tunnel rising upward into the interior of the Sphinx itself. Hidden behind boarded sections and invisible from outside the monument, the passage appeared to extend eastward into the heart of the ancient structure. Whether the tunnel ultimately leads anywhere remains uncertain. It may end only a short distance beyond the visible section. Yet for many observers, the existence of a concealed passage was enough to revive old questions. Even more intriguing, some believe the tunnel's direction broadly corresponds with ground-penetrating radar studies that have suggested the possibility of cavities within parts of the Sphinx. For those convinced that the monument still holds undiscovered secrets, the photographs became another piece of an unfinished puzzle rather than its conclusion. And if the Sphinx itself was only the beginning, another mystery waited only a short distance away. Connected to the causeway between the Sphinx and the second pyramid lies one of the most fascinating underground structures on the entire Giza Plateau, the Osiris shaft. Unlike the silent monument towering above the desert, this remarkable structure leads deep beneath the earth. Its entrance opens into an astonishing system of 3 descending levels carved directly into solid bedrock. Every chamber reflects remarkable planning and engineering, suggesting that its builders possessed an extraordinary understanding of both stoneworking and underground construction. Standing at the entrance, visitors are greeted by a carefully shaped rectangular opening. It appears simple at first glance, but the moment the descent begins, its true complexity becomes clear. A vertical shaft drops nearly 10 meters into the earth, carved with remarkable precision from the surrounding limestone. Every meter of that descent invites a new question. Who created such a place? And why? The moment the descent began, it became impossible not to wonder about the people who had carved this extraordinary place. Every step deeper into the Osiris shaft revealed a feat of engineering that seemed almost unimaginable. The builders had not simply dug a hole into the earth, they had sculpted an underground monument directly from solid limestone. Imagine the enormous effort such a project demanded. Massive blocks of limestone had to be cut and shaped using tools fashioned from harder stones and early metals. Ropes strained under tremendous weight as workers carefully lowered materials into the depths, while wooden supports helped stabilize the operation. Every cut, every measurement, and every chamber reflected remarkable planning and craftsmanship, reminding visitors that the ancient Egyptians possessed engineering skills far beyond what many people imagine. At the bottom of the first descent, the explorers entered a quiet chamber. It contained no glittering treasures, no walls covered with elaborate artwork, and no spectacular display meant to impress intruders. Instead, the room possessed a calm, almost sacred atmosphere. It felt less like a destination and more like a place of preparation, a space where rituals may once have begun or where visitors may have paused before continuing farther into the darkness. But the true mystery waited below. Another carefully carved shaft dropped nearly 20 meters deeper into the bedrock. As the explorers continued their descent, the architecture became increasingly elaborate. These vertical passages seemed far more than simple corridors. They may have served as burial routes, or perhaps they symbolized the soul's passage into the afterlife, echoing beliefs that shaped Egyptian religion for thousands of years. Each level seemed to reveal another layer of an ancient story. Then came the final descent. 30 meters beneath the surface of the Giza Plateau, the explorers reached the deepest chamber of the Osiris shaft. Waiting silently in its center stood a massive stone sarcophagus. It was immediately clear that this was more than an ordinary burial chamber. The entire room appeared designed as a symbolic tribute to the legendary tomb of Osiris himself. What made the scene even more remarkable was the water. Natural groundwater from the surrounding aquifer partially flooded the chamber, creating an atmosphere unlike anywhere else beneath the pyramids. Reflections shimmered across the stone walls, transforming the underground room into a place that seemed suspended between the worlds of the living and the dead. The water naturally evoked themes of rebirth and purification, ideas deeply woven into ancient Egyptian mythology. Standing there, it was difficult not to imagine that the builders had attempted to recreate the ancient Egyptian underworld beneath the very heart of the Giza Plateau. Yet the mysteries did not end there. Beyond the central chamber, archaeologists discovered 6 empty burial shafts. Their existence immediately raised difficult questions. Had grave robbers emptied them centuries ago? Or had they never been occupied at all? No one could say with certainty, and their silence only deepened the mystery. Although the shaft contains no inscriptions that clearly explain its purpose, it has yielded countless smaller clues. Fragments of pottery, broken stone vessels, and other scattered artifacts lie like breadcrumbs left behind by history itself. Together, these discoveries suggest that the Osiris shaft was likely in use during Egypt's New Kingdom period, offering researchers valuable hints about its long and complex history. Investigating the shaft became much like solving an ancient detective story. Every broken artifact, every carved passage, and every newly uncovered detail added another small piece to a puzzle that remains incomplete. Perhaps the most moving discoveries, however, were not the chambers or the artifacts. Hidden within smaller rooms surrounding the central sarcophagus were the mummified remains of ancient individuals. Grand monuments can tell us about kings and dynasties, but these preserved people provide something far more personal. Through scientific analysis, researchers gain rare glimpses into their diets, their daily lives, their health, and perhaps even the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Suddenly, the Osiris shaft becomes more than an archaeological site. It becomes a direct connection to the people who once lived, believed, and were laid to rest beneath the Egyptian desert. Its very name points toward the beliefs that inspired its construction. The shaft is named after Osiris, one of the most important gods in ancient Egyptian mythology. Osiris ruled over the afterlife and embodied death, resurrection, and eternal renewal. According to legend, Osiris was betrayed by his own brother Set, who murdered and dismembered him. His devoted wife, Isis, searched tirelessly for every scattered piece of his body before performing sacred rituals that restored him to life. The story became one of the defining myths of ancient Egypt, symbolizing the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Seen through that lens, the Osiris shaft begins to take on an entirely new meaning. Deep below the surface, the flooded chamber resembles the mythical underworld itself. The enormous stone sarcophagus, appears to represent the tomb of Osiris, while the descent through multiple underground levels mirrors the spiritual journey into the realm of the dead. Rather than serving only as an underground structure, the entire complex can be viewed as a three-dimensional expression of one of Egypt's most powerful religious stories. And yet one question continues to echo through every chamber carved into the limestone. Why was such an extraordinary place built in the first place? As the explorers stood in the silent chamber, one question refused to leave their minds. Why would anyone build such an extraordinary place beneath the Giza Plateau? Among the many theories surrounding the Osiris shaft, one is especially intriguing. Some researchers believe this underground complex may have served as a place of initiation rather than simply a burial site. If that idea is correct, those who entered these chambers thousands of years ago may not have come to bury the dead. Instead, they may have descended into the darkness to experience a symbolic journey that mirrored the fate of Osiris himself. Imagine entering the shaft as an initiate. Every level would represent another stage of a spiritual transformation. The long descent into the earth could symbolize death, while the return to the surface represented rebirth. According to this theory, these rituals were far more than elaborate ceremonies. They were believed to reveal hidden knowledge and transform those who completed them, allowing participants to symbolically relive the legendary resurrection of Osiris. Other researchers have taken the mystery even further. Some speculate that the entire shaft was deliberately aligned with celestial bodies associated with Osiris and the Egyptian afterlife. If true, the underground structure was more than remarkable engineering. It may have been designed as a symbolic bridge connecting Earth with the heavens, guiding the soul on its eternal journey beyond death. This possibility becomes even more fascinating when compared with ancient Egyptian writings. The physical layout of the Osiris shaft appears to echo descriptions found in the pyramid texts and the Book of the Dead. Those ancient texts describe the afterlife using powerful symbols of water, sacred boats, and stone sarcophagi, all representing the soul's passage into eternity. Walking through the shaft almost feels like stepping inside those ancient writings themselves, as though the builders had transformed religious beliefs into a three-dimensional monument carved directly into the limestone. For centuries, the Osiris shaft has remained entombed beneath the Giza Plateau, preserving not only its chambers but also the unanswered questions surrounding its origins. Its own evolution tells another remarkable story. The shaft has two known entrances. One lies to the south, while another opens to the north. Although they lead into the same underground complex, the northern entrance has undergone dramatic changes over the years. Photographs taken during a 2011 expedition reveal a very different scene from what visitors encounter today. In those earlier images, the northern entrance appeared as a weathered opening descending directly into the bedrock, with no visible chisel marks suggesting later modification. Beside it stood a second, smaller tunnel, equally worn by time. At the time, the main entrance measured roughly 6 feet in height, allowing unobstructed access into the underground passage. Today, however, that view has changed completely. Much of the original opening has been sealed behind a concrete wall, while the depression visible beneath it in earlier photographs has been filled with sand. The secondary tunnel has also disappeared beneath layers of sand and fill material. Visitors familiar with the site have noticed the transformation immediately. What was once a clearly visible opening leading into the ancient causeway is now largely concealed by modern construction and accumulated sand. The difference between the older photographs and the present-day landscape is impossible to ignore. To some observers, these changes reinforce the idea that the Osiris shaft was never intended for casual access. Originally, There were no ladders or convenient routes leading into its depths. The metal ladders seen today were installed only during modern archaeological investigations, making exploration far safer than it once was. Yet another mystery awaited researchers inside. Why transport enormous stone sarcophagi into such a confined underground space, instead of simply carving burial chambers directly into the surrounding bedrock? The decision seems remarkably impractical. Using stone lids alone would have required far less effort. Even more curious, the sarcophagi were carved from a different type of stone than the shaft itself, and none bear inscriptions identifying their owners or explaining their purpose. The shaft offers few clues about its own construction. Because it was carved directly into solid bedrock rather than assembled from blocks, archaeologists cannot rely on traditional building techniques to estimate its age. Without inscriptions or datable masonry, determining when it was created becomes far more difficult. Researchers have instead turned their attention to the stone sarcophagi. Various dating methods have suggested considerable antiquity for these massive objects, while one sarcophagus is carved from an especially unusual type of stone. Each is estimated to weigh around 40 tons, presenting an extraordinary engineering challenge. Simply imagining how ancient builders lowered such enormous objects into the shaft stretches the imagination. Heavy ropes alone would have carried unimaginable strain. Some researchers have wondered whether the presence of water inside the shaft may have assisted the operation in some way, although exactly how remains uncertain. Whatever method was used, there could have been almost no room for error. A single mistake, while lowering one of these 40-ton sarcophagi, could have blocked the narrow shaft permanently. Yet the builders completed the task with remarkable confidence, leaving behind one of the most impressive underground engineering achievements of the ancient world, and another mystery that continues to challenge everyone who studies it. Despite the enormous risks involved, the builders carried out their work with astonishing confidence. Lowering stone blocks weighing dozens of tons into a narrow underground shaft would have required extraordinary planning and precision. One mistake could have trapped the sarcophagus forever, sealing the passage beyond recovery. Yet somehow, the operation appears to have succeeded, leaving behind one of the greatest engineering puzzles beneath the Giza Plateau. As archaeologists continued exploring the second level of the Osiris shaft, another mystery emerged. Set against the south wall rested a massive black stone sarcophagus, unlike any ordinary burial container. At first glance, its surface appeared dark and unremarkable, coated with a thin layer of bitumen. But beneath that black coating, researchers noticed something unexpected. Careful examination revealed a broad area, with a pale, almost metallic appearance hidden beneath the bitumen. Scientific analysis indicated that this unusual layer consisted primarily of lead, accompanied by traces of zinc, iron, titanium, and arsenic. Why those metals were present remains uncertain. Some researchers believe the stone may have been deliberately treated or coated during antiquity, while others suggest the material could represent the remains of an ancient protective layer. Whatever its purpose, the metallic coating has yet to receive a definitive explanation, adding another unanswered question to the growing list of mysteries hidden inside the shaft. But the greatest surprise still waited nearby. Positioned against the north wall stood an enormous gray sarcophagus that many researchers consider the most unusual object in the entire Osiris shaft. Its appearance alone attracted attention, but it was the stone itself that truly puzzled scientists. Using X-ray diffraction analysis, researchers identified the mineral composing the sarcophagus as dayite, a rock unlike anything previously documented in any other known artifact from ancient Egypt. If the identification is correct, It makes this sarcophagus entirely unique within the archaeological record. The discovery immediately raised a much larger question. Where had the stone come from? Geologists who spent years studying both Egypt and the wider African continent noted that no known deposits of dayite capable of producing a sarcophagus of this size have been identified anywhere in Africa. If that assessment is accurate, the stone may not have originated in Egypt at all. Some researchers have suggested that it could have been transported from regions far beyond Africa, perhaps arriving by sea from areas around Europe, or even the Black Sea. Determining its true source, however, would require far more detailed geological investigation and comparisons with known deposits around the world. Dayite itself is an igneous rock composed mainly of feldspar and quartz. Its tiny crystals are so fine that they often require microscopic examination, giving the stone its distinctive dull appearance. What makes the mystery even greater is the sheer scale of the undertaking. Known deposits of similar rock are located hundreds of miles from Giza. Transporting a single stone block weighing more than 40 tons across such vast distances and then lowering it deep into an underground shaft would have demanded extraordinary resources, remarkable organization, and engineering methods that continue to provoke debate. Naturally, the questions multiply. How did the builders accomplish such a feat? Why transport such an unusual stone, when high-quality granite from Aswan or basalt from Fayum would have been far easier to obtain? And if they possessed the knowledge to perform this remarkable task once, why does nothing comparable appear elsewhere in Egyptian history? The unusual composition of the sarcophagus was only the beginning. Further research reportedly produced another astonishing result. Using modern dating techniques, some investigators suggested that the sarcophagus could date back to approximately 3,350 BC, placing it in the pre-dynastic period. If accurate, that estimate would place the object roughly 850 years earlier than the commonly accepted construction period of the Giza pyramids. It would also make it nearly 1,000 years older than the reign of Khufu and Egypt's Fourth Dynasty. Such claims remain the subject of ongoing discussion, but they have undoubtedly fueled continued interest in the Osiris shaft. The reported breakthrough came through a dating technique developed by Professor Ioannis Liritsis, designed to estimate the last time two adjoining stone surfaces were exposed to sunlight. Unlike traditional methods that often rely on organic material, this approach allows researchers to investigate monuments built from granite, basalt, and sandstone using a process based on optical thermoluminescence. To understand the method, imagine a block of granite before it is carved into shape. Hidden inside that solid rock are countless microscopic crystals. Throughout countless years underground, those crystals gradually absorb electrons generated by the natural radiation surrounding them. The electrons become trapped inside tiny imperfections within each crystal, creating what scientists call electron traps. Then comes the moment everything changes. When workers finally quarry the stone and expose it to bright sunlight, the energy released by the sunlight empties those traps. Within only a few hours, the stored electrons escape, effectively resetting the crystal to zero. In that instant, the crystal begins a brand new journey through time. Once the granite crystal was hidden from sunlight again, its silent journey through time began. As darkness surrounded the newly placed stone, the tiny crystal remained sealed away from the sun. Year after year, century after century, invisible radiation from the surrounding environment slowly released new electrons into the crystal. Gradually, those microscopic electron traps began filling once more, almost like grains of sand collecting inside an ancient hourglass. Professor Ioannis Lyritsis described the moment sunlight emptied those trapped electrons as the bleaching of the granite crystal. It was as though nature itself had reset an invisible clock buried inside the stone. From the instant the crystal was shielded from daylight again, that clock quietly started ticking once more. Thousands of years later, scientists could examine the crystal and count the electrons that had accumulated since its last exposure to sunlight. By measuring those trapped electrons, they could estimate how much time had passed since the granite block was carved and placed into its final position. Through this technique of optical thermoluminescence, researchers gained a remarkable new way of directly dating monuments and artifacts made from granite, basalt, and sandstone. The method offered archaeologists an entirely new window into the past, and it also reignited one of the most controversial debates in the history of archaeology. Few names provoke more discussion in the study of ancient civilizations than Graham Hancock. Through books such as Fingerprints of the Gods and Magicians of the Gods, Hancock has spent decades presenting an alternative interpretation of humanity's distant past. His work challenges many conventional archaeological timelines and explores the possibility that an advanced civilization may have flourished long before the rise of ancient Egypt, Sumer, or the civilizations of the Indus Valley. According to Hancock's hypothesis, this forgotten civilization possessed sophisticated knowledge of mathematics, engineering, and architecture, knowledge that may later have influenced the world's earliest known cultures. Within that larger theory, the Osiris shaft occupies an important place. Hancock has suggested that the remarkable complexity of the underground structure may point to a far older origin than traditionally believed. Rather than viewing it as an isolated monument, he considers the possibility that it preserves knowledge inherited from an earlier civilization whose history has largely disappeared. He has also explored another intriguing possibility. The orientation of the shaft, he suggests, may have been intentionally connected to celestial bodies associated with Osiris, reflecting ancient beliefs about life, death, and rebirth. In Hancock's interpretation, Egypt's monuments were not simply buildings scattered across the landscape. Instead, they formed part of a much larger cosmic design, each structure contributing to humanity's understanding of the heavens and the spiritual journey beyond death. If that interpretation is correct, then the Osiris shaft could represent far more than an underground chamber. It could preserve clues to how an ancient culture understood both the universe above and the world below. Many of Hancock's broader ideas revolve around a dramatic chapter in Earth's history known as the Younger Dryas, approximately 12,800 to 11,600 years ago. According to his hypothesis, a series of devastating comet impacts triggered global catastrophes that destroyed the advanced civilization he believes once existed. In his view, only scattered survivors remained, carrying fragments of their knowledge into the civilizations that later emerged around the world. That perspective also shapes the way Hancock interprets the Osiris shaft itself. To most archaeologists, the water filling its deepest chambers is simply groundwater from the surrounding aquifer. Hancock, however, views it symbolically. He believes it echoes memories of the great floods described in myths across many cultures, stories that, in his opinion, preserve distant memories of real catastrophes experienced by that lost civilization. Within his interpretation, the flooded chambers become more than geological features. They become reminders of a forgotten world reshaped by immense natural disasters. Hancock has long encouraged archaeologists and prehistorians to examine evidence for multiple ancient cataclysms, arguing that traces of those events may still exist, but have not yet been recognized or correctly interpreted. Whether one agrees with his conclusions or not, his ideas continue to inspire debate about humanity's earliest history.